This committee circa 2026 to order. This is our year. Things are gonna be so exciting this year. Okay, so let's begin with, well, first I'd like to introduce Joe Rosillas here, for anyone who doesn't know him. And Andy Cole? What's last?
Barr.
What's that?
Barr.
Sorry, and Andy Barr. So, welcome. So first, a review of minutes. Does anybody have any changes or edits to the minutes? Okay, do we have a motion to accept the minutes from last meeting? Second? All in favor? Aye, okay. Duly submitted. As far as the chair's report, not that much to report. Boy, that's loud in the room today. Our next meeting will be February 9th at 4 p.m. And as far as a membership update, I believe, Andy, you were put in as an alternate member at the last select board meeting.
Oh, really?
But I have not received actual verification of that. I think I just saw that by skimming through the transcript of the select board. Can you verify that by any chance, Gina?
I don't think that we took that up.
No?
Make sure that it's
Oh,
on the
okay.
next. Yeah,
We'll find it to go.
Chris nominated or appointed? Okay.
Let's maybe hold off till we get confirmation, but I thought I saw that, skimming through all the committee confirmations. So I don't have that much to update you on. Well, everything else is just part of the larger agenda. But I'm very excited that Susan is here for her first meeting as our liaison. And so let me turn the meeting over to you and welcome you and thank you for being here with us.
well, thank you. I'm just getting myself up to speed. I spent the afternoon, I met with Jennifer and then had Holly send me various materials that would be useful background, YouTube meetings and so on. So now you know how I spent my afternoon.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, not at all. Fortunately, I can multitask. So I'm here to take it in and see how things are moving and add feedback where appropriate or useful, and then take it on to our board to keep it all in the mix. So
Fantastic. And then, we met about a month ago, and one of the things we had discussed was the possibility of a select board, HRC, planning board, kind of a workshop on HPO to kind of a working session to kind of talk about all the issues involved. And this is something that they had success with the cemetery committee. So I don't know if there's been any progress on that front or how you kind of want to take that step by step.
well, we are because we just we did the cemetery committee, and then we at our last meeting we had a workshop with Jeremy from the planning. Well, we had two actually in our last meeting. We got an update on short-term rentals, and then we did a workshop specifically with Jeremy about so much has come down from the legislature of late through the last legislative session that has required a lot of assimilation into our code. So staff has been very busy working to come into compliance with statutes. So that was really kind of eye-opening to us as to how our codes office is working right now. And yes, it's our intent to sort of get ahead of the committee process a little bit so that if there's an ongoing piece of work that we all understand what's happening, so that time is not put into something that won't be well received really is the intent.
Yeah.
So to the extent that we can be informing one another along the way,
Hmm.
it saves, if something's going to be dead on arrival, there's
Yeah.
no point in putting
Yeah.
a lot of time into
Yeah.
it. But if we can provide guidance and vice versa, that's our focus.
That's great. And I think that is much appreciated. And what is the process then to kind of get on your calendar and see if this is something that the rest of the board members want to undertake and timing with,
Well, we're having an agenda setting on Wednesday, and I can bring it up to Audra and Allison. We meet and hash things out pretty thoroughly. We do have budget coming up in March, so that will sort of take up everybody's attention. So it might either be before or after in April.
okay,
So let me get back to you on that. I will
Great.
definitely put it at the top of the list when I meet with Audra
thank you very much.
today. For sure.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, again, welcome. We were very excited to hear that you were our liaison. So moving to the issue of the historic preservation ordinance, I passed out a document to everybody that I just needed to get my head straight in terms of breaking down things that are, represented in both the Department of the Interior, the CLG, and the 2011 draft. And so I just kind of,
I'm sorry, what's CFR?
that's the, what is it? The code, you'll know what it, Codes for Federal Regulations, CFR 30. It's the set of regulations that govern the State of Interior, Department of Interior's recommendations for rehabilitation. So they're the basic guideline. It says in the first line here, the standards for rehabilitation are codified in 36 CFR Part 67, are regulatory for the Historic Preservation Tax Incentives Program, and are the standards most often used by local historic district commissions nationwide. So these would be the guidelines as referenced in our HPO. So, and they are the first 10 features in this table are the kind of top line standards. And then, so I basically created 3 columns here. I'm actually working on columns 4 and 5, which are looking at Castine and looking at our 2025 draft. But I wanted to get these ones down for us today. So I basically went through, what is, if we are going to create an HPO that is CLG compliant, it's easy to go through that CLG manual, but I just thought it'd be great to just break it down as line items and a checklist and be able to look across and see what our different drafts, their status in terms of compliance. And I was really pleasantly surprised in reviewing 2011. I hadn't looked at it in a while at just how compliant it already is. And I was also really impressed anew at some of the language, the elegance of some of the language. And I have become more and more entranced by that draft as compared to the draft we were developing in 2025. I think ours could use some of the simplicity. It's a 10-page HPO draft as opposed to ours was getting around 17. And I think we had maybe some language and sections that I think now may be unnecessary. So that's why I sent to you an email last week, a copy of that draft and the CLG and the standards, just so you could hopefully take a look at them before this meeting, but here's a kind of a condensed version. So that's something to ponder. And if we do move forward with the workshop with the select board, taking some of this information, paring it down and into a presentation form would be, part of the intent there. Does anybody have any questions or anything they want to talk about with regard to the historic preservation ordinance at this point? Or any kind of takeaways that surprised you upon reviewing any of the old documents?
Can I just make sure I understand this? So the first page,
Mm-hmm.
you took the 10 line items. These are from the CFR
Mm-hmm.
and you put them in here and
Mhm.
an X means that they are
Included, yes. Uh-huh.
What you're saying is the 2011 draft HPO
Mm-hmm.
included the things where you put checks.
Exactly.
And then on page 2,
Uh-huh.
you took the CLG requirements.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why you have X's there, and some of them also overlap with
Exactly.
CFR and the 2011 draft. And so this
Exactly.
is your interpretation of looking at these 3 documents and
Exactly.
saying, where is there overlap? And-
Exactly.
Okay, thank you. And so what you want to do is you want to add 2 more, one for the 2025 draft, and what was the 4th
Castine.
column? Oh, Castine.
Because
Okay.
Castine has been so continuously recommended to us as a role model by the state of Maine. I wanted to compare, and the more I look at the language of the Castine HPO, which I kind of just moving forward with by the recommendation of the state, and I'm really gravitating more and more to this 2011 draft as the launching point, I think, for our future.
Can I ask a really, maybe a dumb question?
Yeah.
Why did the 2011 draft get dropped? Or I don't know what happened. Maybe it was put to a ballot and
Yeah,
didn't
I can-
appear then, so.
I can send you, if you haven't seen it, the town discussions around the 2011 draft is something that we had looked at a couple years ago, but I have the documentation. I can send it to you. I don't know the inner politics. I can only kind of speculate because I wasn't here. But my understanding is, and maybe Chris will have some insight here, is that this was a document largely pushed forward by Christopher Glass and in working with the Historic Resources Committee, and that in discussions with the select board and with the town, there was pushback from businesses mostly. And so when it came to the select board deciding to move it to warrant, they chose not to do that.
Okay, so it never went.
But I don't know what the specific objection was. So there it is.
Okay. I'm just concerned about moving forward with any draft because I feel like we as a committee have not come to any kind of resolution with regarding the feedback that we've talked about it several times, but the
Mhm.
feedback that we got from those couple public meetings we had, like didn't leave me like with a warm and fuzzy feeling that this was something that was overwhelmingly desired by the rest of Camden. So I just feel like this is a lot of work that you're doing.
Mhm.
And I wonder if we have a little bit of cart before the horse going on. That's all.
What would you recommend, or what is your instinct?
Well, I'm interested to hear what everybody else has to say.
Any other feedback or thoughts?
I mean, I would agree.
I mean,
that-
if I'm an outlier, I'll go along
No,
with the
I
committee
would
'cause
agree
it's-
that there was, yeah, I mean, I think that, yeah, most of the concerns, I don't think we fully addressed as a committee. So I think that's warrants more discussion maybe before we get too into the weeds. So I agree with you.
Well, what does that look like to you? I mean, my sense is we have to have a platform or a template to work off and modify per feedback we hear and per discussion we have with the select board and the interest of the planning board. And that just ongoing discussion about a particular item kind of gets us in a spinning wheels. Like, for instance, if we're talking about our phrasing or our position on original materials, say.
No, I'm talking about the fact that the feedback we got was in general that nobody wanted this.
The 2011 or an HBO in general?
An HPO.
I would dispute that as our general response. And that wasn't my impression. I think there were some people in the room who
Oh,
were
there were some
opposing.
people, but I thought it was by and large that people are not,
I don't know if that the people who came to our meetings are necessarily representative of the community as a whole. And given the election results or voting results, I think there's a strong endorsement for us to move forward with an actual draft of an ordinance. And that a few people showing up to a town input meeting doesn't mean put the kibosh on moving forward with the ordinance. But I don't know if that's what you're saying.
I thought we had conversations about maybe stepping it back, doing it in steps. And I thought that's what we talked about at the end of last year, was maybe we would consider an ordinance that only talked about demolition and not about renovation. I just don't know where we are in all of this. But I'm the only one talking, so that
No,
is telling
no,
me a lot.
I mean, my personal feeling is we have a demolition ordinance. It could be more robust, but we have a demolition ordinance. And that the next step is to move to a historic preservation ordinance and at least have the town vote yay or nay, we want this or we don't want this. I don't know that there is a real baby step between what we already have and a historic preservation ordinance. It's just what is included in that preservation ordinance. That's my opinion.
We don't have any demolition ordinance that falls under historic preservation.
We have the demolition delay, which was the
We have the
compromise.
60-day delay, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
And there's some other
120.
elements in the zoning ordinance that mention historic preservation.
If
In the
I'll be quiet.
comprehensive plan.
No, don't be quiet, please. Like, no.
But I feel like we're creating a document and we're looking at a lot of stuff, and I don't feel like there's consensus around the table about what will be in this document.
Mhm.
Well, it seems to me, and I'm not a member right now, but as an outside volunteer, that in 2011, it got pushed back because there was a small vocal group of people that said, no, not now. And the select board at the time or the planning, but I think it was select board, said, no, we're not going to move it forward, as Chris just said. Then between then and, probably 2021 or just pre-COVID, this committee worked on another draft, and we did a lot of work on it,
Mhm.
an awful lot, and had a draft pretty well, almost ready to go. And then I think through Jeremy's office or through Jeremy, let's make it small. Let's just go for the demolition. And so we went for the demolition, and the committee just kind of refocused on the demolition delay. And even some of that was pulled back and made less strong with what actually went through and got passed. And then, so coming out of that, it was like, hey, this is still on the books in terms of one of the things that this committee should do. It's lined up with CLG and getting grants and getting support for what we're doing. And we pushed this forward. And then I think there was a lot of input and Chris pulled this together. He's written it probably 2 or 3 times now.
Mhm.
And I think we have to say, are we going to go for this or not? And I don't know where the consensus is here, but it seems to me that having an ordinance that would work for the community would perhaps slow down some of the deterioration of houses, the losses of major structures over the last several years. And that's just going to continue. It's going to be more pressure moving forward to, hey, I've got the money, I want to come in, let's take it down, put this up. There's not going to be any hesitation legally to say, hey, hold on a minute. Let's make sure we keep what this community looks like. And every time we lose a building, we're losing part of our soul here. And I think it's time to move this forward. I mean, I've been on it for years and years, and it always gets to this point, and then there's big hesitation and saying, oh, do we really want it? Well, I guess I'll go with where Chris is here. We had a mandate from the voters, and what happened in 2011 was a small group in town that said, we're not going to move this forward. And I don't really want to see that happen again
Chris,
personally.
did you use the 2021 document at all in building the one that we're looking at now? Your
Well-
2025 one?
The 2025 is really an evolution of what
Okay,
was being
okay.
worked on. So as I joined the committee, there was a working
Right.
historic preservation, which I think borrowed some from 2011, but it departed a lot from it as well.
And we looked at Castine and all of the ones that were in the state at the time. We collected them all and said, kind of didn't do it quite as structurally as this, but we had our checklist. Hey, it has this, it doesn't have this. And Chris has outlined it, so it's a bit clearer.
And, anecdotally, it doesn't necessarily mean any more than anything else, but I don't want to speak for Jeremy, but a lot of the, support I've gotten from planning is that we should be moving forward with this and that they're on board with us moving forward with this. Anecdotally around town, every time there's some controversy about a building or a demolition, there's like, why don't we have something in town? And then we have a vote where 80% of the people say, write a historic preservation ordinance. It's not going to be argued. Do they really understand what that is? Do they know what's in it? Understandably. But isn't it time to put something in front of the voters and have them say yay or nay?
And so is your intention then to put something in front of the voters that satisfies the CLG and the CFR?
Well, I thought that was something that we would be debating. How much are we going to include in the CLG? But I'm surprised by really breaking it down, how much is actually covered already in the existing 2011 draft. And it's not quite as extreme, for lack of a better word, than I originally thought to kind of go for full CLG compliance. And if we can be receiving grants for various projects around town, I don't know why we wouldn't at least shoot for that. But I think that's a discussion point. And those are the kinds of things I would really hope to come out of a discussion with the select board. Yeah.
Is that 60-day thing something you lowered to get it in place, or
The demolition delay,
60, the thing you come up with right away?
I wasn't there, so I don't know, but I think 60 is a fairly standard language.
Very, very slow.
Yeah, and there's no teeth
It's
in it.
120 days.
Oh, that's right. It's 120 days.
I work with towns that are 9 months. 9 months. Newburyport, I think is 9
Yeah.
months. And, people.
But there's effectively no teeth. Just making somebody wait 120 days can be inconvenient, but it's not. That's it. It's just wait 120 days. So there's no mechanism for stopping demolition.
Those dates are to have people pause and say, is there some other thing we can do? And I think if the period's too short, it's like, hey, we'll just wait the period out. And I think that's sort of what's happened in the demolitions we've seen recently. Oh, and people are smart for that, so they're coming in early to put their proposal for demolition in.
That's happened just last year. We received applications where they had no plan or intent to work on the project until 120 days from then. So it is effectively meaningless to come to us. I take what you say very seriously, and I understand you represent a lot of people's concerns and voices. I just don't know how, as a committee, we move forward with something I think we are chartered to do. Even in the 10-year plan, it says specifically we should move forward with drafting a historic preservation ordinance. So I just feel like that's where we're at, and that's what we should be doing. But I'm one of 5, so. Yeah.
I thought there was consensus here that we would move forward with the HPO. I thought the main debate was, a more trimmed down version that wouldn't necessarily meet the CLG requirements versus the full-fledged longer draft that we've been working on. And that is in response to feedback. For example, that couple of the Chestnut Street homeowners who came and they were concerned, for example, they were very much for the HPO. But what made them nervous was original material requirements and mainly that.
Mhm.
additional structures, like they gave the example of they build a fence to hide some unsightly things on the neighbor's property. And they said, like, reading the draft, it looked like they wouldn't be allowed to do that. And so they were cautioning us against too many regulations,
Right.
but the principle of no demolition and, preserving the historic character, they were for that. They're in the historic district. I think that people who live in the historic district, the main concern is cost, right?
Time, yeah.
And maybe how restrictive it is. So we don't want to overstep, I think, that by, if people really don't want the more restrictive and they're willing to give up maybe some eligibility for CLG grants, but that's debatable, right? We're not really sure if we would be sacrificing
Exactly. That,
really on that front.
I think your description exactly matches my understanding. And again, pleasantly surprised revisiting these documents, just how much leeway and kind of subjectiveness is built into both the CLG and the 2011 draft. I mean, the material requirements, I highlighted them. They're, when I look at the actual phrasing, where possible, there's a lot of language like that. They're not mandates. It allows for the commission to grant a lot of leniency in terms of
You
compliance.
gotta be careful because it also allows for a commission to not grant any leniency.
Of course it does, but
So,
this commission is appointed by select board. We're not tyrants, and we have a disposition and an intention, and we have a purpose for the HPO, which is not to restrict development in the town of Camden. So I think the concern is not what people in this room and potential new members of the commission would do, but more in future iterations of a commission, would the character of that commission change, and would then people feel that this was onerous? And that, I think, would fall upon the select board to be appointing the appropriate people to the commission. But I know where the intentions of everyone in this room are in terms of working with homeowners, property owners, and our desire to maintain historic landmarks and sites without creating problems for homeowners. I mean, that's the disposition of this committee as it has been since I've been a member. So
And I think you've stated that in that tone in the document.
yeah. So
okay.
there we are. I don't know.
Are these documents online or you have to get in there and read them?
The 2011 draft is something that I just emailed to members that was passed on to me. In terms of the CLG document and sent, yeah, those are all online. I can happily share them with you. Yeah. And these are all things that we would, of course, be posting as we start moving forward and have an actual chosen selected path. But yeah.
If you want to go all the way back, just start, do you want preservation? Ask that question. Should there be? And how do you go about preserving your history? And being a good place, a nice place, Camden wants to have an ordinance, have historic preservation ordinance like all the other neat places.
There wouldn't be this committee if there
And then
wasn't.
what happened, from my recollection, is that way back when Jeff Nims and Roger Moody were here, and they discovered that all of a sudden Camden had all these buildings and properties, and some of them were being misused and all that. So really, it's all started with doing the Camden's own properties. And then there's various episodes came up, like the post office and Laverdiers and things like that, where preservation actually had an impact on things and all that. And people recognize that. And then it developed into the committee, and then the committee decided they should have a zoning ordinance or preservation ordinance. So should we not have a preservation ordinance, or should we have
No,
a preservation? Or should we go back to the beginning and say, do we really want our history?
I just feel like my point was, this is a lot of work.
Mhm.
Chris is looking at a
It's a lot
lot
of
of
work that's been
a
done.
lot of documents.
by a lot of
And I
other
want to make
communities.
sure that we are in agreement with where we're going before
Yeah.
we just start going somewhere.
I hear you. I was hoping that this would be a step in helping us decide where we're going. So, yeah, I'm not trying to steamroll anyone. Am I? I don't know. But not to put
Chairperson's
Joe
prerogative,
or
steamroll.
not to put Joe or Susan on the spot, but I'd be so curious you stepping into an ongoing conversation that you can hear is still evolving. If you either of you have any reactions to kind of what you're hearing or what you hear outside of this committee. Saved by the bell.
Do you want to go first?
Sure.
I guess my primary concern is implementation and capacity to implement at a level that is credible to somebody who is wanting to make alterations or, I was going to ask you, in the case of the demolition cooling off period, which appears to be just a cooling off period. So if I've purchased a property, and there aren't many in the district, but there was an instance, and I assess it and I realize it's beyond my capacity or my interest to restore it. What happens? Like, do you all kind of meet with the person and ask them to rethink their plans? This 120-day,
Are you asking what happens now?
who's involved in,
Are you talking about process now
Yeah.
or process if there were an
Yeah.
HPO? So the process now,
Involved, and what does
first
it
of all, we'll
look
go to
like?
Jeremy's office
Mhm,
and there's an application that
mhm,
then is brought to us
Uh-huh.
and we have a formal sit down review with the parties where they explain the work they want to do or the demolition they want to do,
mhm,
why they want to do it.
mhm.
And we have about an hour and a half review. And then all we are empowered to do is either approve them moving forward without a 120-day delay or to say to not grant a 120-day delay. That's it. That's all we do. So we
So to
can't, we're
not
not.
grant the 120-day delay, meaning that they could proceed immediately.
Mhm.
And what function
And then it goes
does
back
the-
to Jeremy.
What function does the 120-day delay serve?
If there's one put in place,
Yeah,
that's a great question because it effectively does nothing, but it's supposed to
Well,
be.
It's in the ordinance. I mean, I think three things. One is, are there other uses of that building? Would be one. Two, could it be moved? Could it be sold to someone else who would protect it? So it's just.
so you're looking at
challenge-
fairly extraordinary remedies for me as a homeowner.
Yeah.
If I've made that decision.
Yeah.
I
Well,
mean,
not necessarily. So in the
well,
last
moving or selling it to moving a building.
Well,
or
those
selling
would
it to
be, but
someone
that's
else. Those
not,
are extraordinary.
those would be
Then
extraordinary.
The third one is, hey, have you thought about, let's take it apart and reuse the parts? If we can't move the building.
Another extraordinary remedy.
Well,
If it's my home that I'm trying, I mean,
mhm.
I guess what I'm getting at is all of these strategies involve a willingness of a property owner to take on a delay which has a dollar sign attached to it. There's no way around it. If you've got contractors waiting to do something for you. So that being said, if I were that person, I would want to be assured that the people who were making that determination really had the capacity to do it. and I'm not doubting anyone at this table, but do we have a deep enough bench to really carry this out in a way that's credible? And if I come into town with my resources and want to commit, am I confident that the process is being carried out in the most professional way? You know, so it's really a function of who do we draw from the community in addition to the people at this table who are going to make this process really.
Well, just to make it real world, in the last 2 years, I think we had I have them here, 5 demolition reviews. And in those cases, I think we only did not approve 1 of the 5, but my recollection could be wrong. But it's what we've always, the way the discussion is framed and what we're authorized to do is only on the basis of its historical significance. As the Historic Resource Committee, we're not making architectural decisions or what have you. It's just on its historical value. And we have walked out of those with things like, we're lifting the 120-day delay, but can you take photographs before you demolish? Can you preserve that signage? These are very minor concessions aimed at preserving historical elements. So we've never said, or nor do we have the capacity to say, you must move your house. So I don't think that when you say a deep enough bench, I think we're fully qualified for the kinds of decisions we're making. If we were making more sophisticated decisions, I would agree with you. We should have a deeper bench. We should have additional consultants. I would love to have Joe be a member of this committee and other architectural or historical preservation experts on this committee, or when it becomes a commission. Yeah.
Couple of quick questions. It's a very minor, well, it's a minor thing, but maybe it's not a minor thing. Do they have to come before you with the color they're going to paint their house?
No, that's not part of.
That's a horrible thing. On Cape Cod, the Old Kings Highway, you have to get approved the color you're painting your house, which is just amazing.
No, paint color is actually listed as not a part of
And when
the
you buy a
ordinance.
house in Camden, is there a rule or a guide, a law that when you buy the house, you have to be informed ahead of time that this is on the historic district or this is something, and you may have to go before for any of these new regulations and stuff?
I don't believe that is currently in the town code. I think it would be pretty hard to purchase a home in a historic district and not know that, but that wording could be part of a historic preservation ordinance.
And does the commission have do you know every house in town that has some value to it, some historic value to it?
No, it's only designating the homes in the 3 historic districts.
District.
Mhm.
I know that a lot of towns, it doesn't have to be in a district. It can be just,
Yeah, it's-
someone has to say, oh, by the way, that house is historic. And then all of a sudden they put a stop to it. Hold on.
Yeah,
We wanna
no,
analyze things.
no, our ordinance has been specific to the 3 historic districts. Yeah.
But not every property in the district is historically significant. Is that true? Like Chestnut Street? Are all of the homes in the Chestnut Street district considered historically
Probably
significant
not.
in that district?
Every home in the historic district would be under the ordinance. And so if they did major modifications, they would have to get a certificate of appropriateness for
Or
their
the
renovation.
major modification
there are
that
some
happened before
non-cons.
the district had been established? Or they, before any regulation around the district had been established? So I'm sure that applies.
Well, then those modifications would be, the commission would say, no, this is not a contributing historic feature to the home or neighborhood. So, but it would still have to go through that process because it is within the historic district. So if it's a major modification to exterior, they'd have to get a certificate of appropriateness, which is just be one step of the getting your things from the planning.
there are non-contributing members of a district that would really not need the process,
Wait, what?
but nobody's
does
come
that
to
mean?
us to.
Wait, what did you just say?
There are certain projects, certain dwellings, buildings, projects within a historic district that are non-contributing, that are not going to have the Secretary of the Interior's guidelines apply to.
Wait, so are you in, we're going to go and we're going to like survey and inventory all the historic
It's already,
districts?
it's already specified in the historic district application.
House
Like,
is
skip this house,
non-contributing.
skip this house, skip that house.
It's not skip it, it's part of the whole feature of that neighborhood or that district.
So
But the
my
house itself-
house, I would need to go through this process, but my next door neighbor might not necessarily have
It's,
to.
it's more like a gardening shed is
I
a
don't understand.
non-contributing structure to the neighborhood. But almost every home in the district is a contributing. But that's all spelled out in the,
It's all identified already.
And I would echo what Susan said, and you think homeowners who are coming here and purchasing something know that?
no, but the difference between contributing and non-contributing? No, that
No, they're gonna-
maybe or maybe not, but I'm saying they would know they were in a historic district. No? Oh, we can remedy that, but
Exactly. Thank you,
But
Chris.
when you went for your building permit, then it would come up.
That would be an ugly surprise.
You have to actually read your building permit and pay attention to what you're building.
Just in reference to Susan, what you mentioned about the idea of the makeup of the committee in terms of passing judgment on these things, on these applications. That has come up before, and it came up, it was brought up by Meg Barkley, who was a former chair of HR. She used that exact phrase, deep enough bench too. And so I think that is something that we should pay attention to as part of the campaign for the HPO, because that is an issue that might come up again, and it is important. And this committee will change to a commission as part of the HPO, and the makeup of the committee will change, right? It will be more aligned with expertise. on
Yeah.
it.
the select board would choose the new members of the commission.
Yeah.
And, maybe some people would continue to serve on the commission, others wouldn't. But the idea would, of course, to have the most qualified people on that commission. But Joe, I'm wondering your insights, as an architect in the community.
So I think from a practice standpoint, what I would expect my clients to, how they would react would be concern, obviously, that anything that is in the HPO would cause them more money and more trouble, more difficulty getting their project approved. I can't recall a project that I've been in a situation where there has been historic precedent of, a building that we've been working on where the client came in and said, this is crap, like I want to do something that is totally different. Most of the time we're trying to fit in with the existing architecture that's there in the first place. So it hasn't really been that case where we've been trying to do something that's contrary to the architectural style and language that's being used. So I think the concern is more about more cost, more effort. It's another board that I have, or committee that I have to go sit in front of and get approval from. And it adds a layer of uncertainty to the process where, and I think this is probably true of any planning board that we've sat in front of. You just don't know if someone on that board is going to object to something that looked completely innocuous to us as we were preparing the materials,
Yeah.
and then becomes a thing.
Yeah.
So I agree with some of the sentiment here that that some of the fears for the applicant might be that there are people who were on the committee who might see things differently than we see them. Even if I, as the design professional, feel like we're complying with the intent of the law, but someone might see that differently. that might happen and cause more trouble. And I think that the challenge, especially with a document like this, is that anytime you start to move in the direction of allowing some leeway for the committee to make decisions about whether or not this particular thing fits the intent of the ordinance or not, as opposed to being hard and fast rules, then the certainty that I go into as a design professional to present and try to get the committee to agree that what we're doing is within the intent of the law, that becomes more uncertain. The more ambiguity or inflexibility, which I agree on the one hand is a great thing because it gives the committee the opportunity to be flexible, not just in one area, but multiple areas, also causes uncertainty on our end. That we're going in and kind of the more uncertainty there is, the more it's just a crapshoot of whether or not the project's going to be. So that's, reading through this for the first time was the one thing that I can appreciate on the one hand, but also on the other hand, I think creates more uncertainty in terms of selling it. Perhaps that's a good thing, that flexibility, so that people don't feel as if they're coming in. Because I have been subject to other design standards in other communities, and sometimes they are very specific.
Yeah.
Which again, sometimes is a good thing, and in other cases, it doesn't leave you a whole lot of room to move.
Yeah, and therein is the catch-22, right? Because traditionally, or in a lot of cases, there is a historic preservation ordinance, and then there's a guideline document, and that is a very extensive spelling out of all the architectural requirements, what have you. And it had been our opinion, and as advised, to not take that tact with an additional design manual. Instead, it had been Jeremy's recommendation to issue white papers as needed, which would be kind of guidelines or recommendations as a particular issue perhaps needed some clarification or recommendation, but to not have a separate 200-page design manual that we spend 2 years producing and what have you. And I think that's a much smarter approach too, but it does create exactly what you're saying, the uncertainty and the subjectivity.
So from my perspective, if it's suggested that we're matching the existing details of the original structure, if it's suggested instead of required, and I come in and be like, no, we're not going to do that, then what's the result of that? Is the committee rejecting our application? And it's just suggested though. So it kind of creates that confusion and lack of clarity, I think. But I agree with you. I think the community would react more favorably to something that has some pliability to it rather than something that is hard and fast.
And my hope is that it creates the kind of productive dialogue, and that has been borne out by conversations with other commissions around town, that's exactly what the outcome has been, that there's been a back and forth dialogue, and the homeowner and the commission reach a solution when there is conflict. My own, again, anecdotal interviews with commissioners around the state is that they approve almost everything that moves through their commission. It's just to what degree is there a conversation about, hey, could you modify it this way or that way? And that would be my hope here. But thank you for that perspective.
I will just add too that
Yeah.
there's no code document that I have gone through, NFPA, IBC, any of the land use ordinances that perfectly matches every project that we work on. Right?
Yeah.
So there are always projects come up where the language doesn't fit here. So what do we do when we work with whomever the code officer, whomever it is, that's making that decision to say these two things don't go together. How do we make this fit the intent of the rule? So whatever gets put together here, guaranteed there will be situations that come up where someone comes before the committee and says, this doesn't work for us, and then the document will have to evolve to react to that in some respect. So I think it takes some of the pressure off to hit it perfectly the first time around. It's going to have to change and evolve as projects come before the committee, and they have to make decisions that don't seem to fit what's written down.
Thank you. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Well, do we want to continue this discussion, or I think maybe we've got some things to chew on and think about and to find out if we're going to move forward and have a discussion with the select board and have that temperature check and kind of more deeply discuss our path forward. I agree that we don't want to just start moving forward without additional input from decision makers. So are we in agreement on that, or is there more to talk about here?
I have one question.
Yeah.
Does anybody know of a municipality that has a historic preservation ordinance that is not connected with the Secretary of the Interior's recommendations or guidelines?
I have not seen that, but I haven't seen
I've
that.
seen some from the 1950s and things like that.
Mhm.
Or what is the legal ramifications of not associating with the Secretary of the Interior's guidelines?
Well, my understanding is that historic preservation is a local ordinance and it does not need to slave to anything. It's a town ordinance. Town decides how they preserve their history. But that I think you would be sticking out like a sore thumb if you didn't rely on some of the guidance of the Department of Interior and what's been developed in those guidelines. Not necessarily the CLG, but
Are there any houses in town on the National Register that are not in the district?
that are not in the district. I think the hotel,
Norvega.
yeah, that's on the registry, and you could argue that's a home.
Conway House.
Conway House, yeah.
And usually in the National Register,
The library.
you have to, only if you're going for money, grant money,
Right.
do you have to follow certain things. And I read one time where there's a huge amount of historic properties, National Register properties in the country that have been torn down. If there was no, the owner could do whatever they want with them.
Yeah, being on the registry does nothing in terms of preservation of that property. It all comes down to local ordinance, yeah. Chris?
This all only applies to residentials, to non-commercial structure. So that any commercial structure would still have to go through all the guidelines of the Secretary of the Interior, and that to get the tax credits, which is really the only reason for doing it, is because getting the commercial tax credits. You don't get any of that with residential properties.
And I believe a homeowner can stop.
Relaxing the standards is really, doesn't really affect anything monetarily.
A homeowner can stop their property from being on the National Register if they wanted to.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, you can have individual houses that.
I had a classic job down Cape Cod, the last vacation home of JFK. Was going to go on the National Register. I was documenting for that. And that was bought by one of the Kennedys. And he split the whole thing to a stop. Nope, nothing on the National Register.
Joe,
Guess
can
you
I,
can do what you want.
I'm curious about something. Do you think a potential homeowner coming into a property in Camden, do you think if there was a historic preservation ordinance in place and some of the benefits for that ordinance were spelled out, that, more and more studies are coming out that having a historic preservation ordinance in place increases home value, solidifies the character of a neighborhood? There are definite pros to historic preservation for a homeowner. They're not just costs. Do you think that's a tough sell to a homeowner, or that seems too nebulous, or do you think that has any value or weight to a potential homeowner?
I think if someone is looking to buy a home that is perhaps in these districts, it's probably going to be one of two types of people. The first is someone who's buying that home because they appreciate what it is. And so I think all of those things that you just said would apply to that person. The other type of person is someone who has been looking for a nice piece of property, a nice home in Camden for 6 months or a year, and just is buying it because it's available, and they're stubborn and they want to do what they want with it. I think if those people, that second group, the latter, is aware of what the process is and what rules apply, that might discourage them from buying that property, which in terms of the benefits of the town is probably a good thing, to be honest. So I think if you get the right buyer, the right homeowner, then I think they would appreciate anything is assuming they want to come in and make improvements or modifications or maintenance or what have you. I think that those things they would look at those as a benefit.
I've seen one thing from an opposite viewpoint than what I hear most people say. And that is when as you made the case that Camden homeowners, by and large, have done a spectacular job of preserving the history of this town and the aesthetics of this town. I mean, all you have to do is look around and say, look what we've done with this town and how beautiful it is and how historic it is, and the character of this town as seen internally and externally. And people who come into town don't radically change their homes. They're sensitive to keeping the character of their home. That's why they bought it. That's why they moved here. So the argument could be made, so why do you need a historic preservation ordinance? And I get that argument, but I always see it from the opposite standpoint, that this preservation ordinance is precisely to protect those people who already feel that way from the exception that they would see as an eyesore or see as taking away from the thing they have invested in, the reason they have moved to this town and what have you. And I know that's an opposite, contrary position, but that's the lens through which I see it. And I'm just curious if anybody has any opinions of that. Mm-hmm.
This might not be useful at all, but I'm just observing the results of let's say it's a straw poll, non-binding, the article that was passed in November of 2024. The yes vote was 2,728 people and the no 643.
Mm-hmm.
One might argue that the yeses were all those people to whom this will not apply, but who have an emotional attachment, not unlike what we saw around the dam.
Mm-hmm.
You look at facts and science and the actual implementation,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where the rubber hits the road and the expense begins and the delays begin and the oversight begins. And then you have a lot of people who say, but we love the way it looks here.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to vote in favor of this, even though I live in a subdivision outside of town and none of this will ever impact me,
Mm-hmm.
except for the way that my town looks.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be so interesting to know
Mm-hmm.
how people who actually live in properties that are impacted
Mm-hmm.
felt about this or continue to feel about it.
Well, let me chime in. Because I live in one of those. And I'll be honest, no realtor told us we were buying a house in a historic district or what that meant. And I know I feel like I'm harping on this,
Mm-hmm.
but I've done a lot of work on my house in the past 3 years, and I still don't have a good answer.
Mhm.
Would I be able to replace those windows that I replaced? I took out 19th century windows with pitted wavy glass and wooden frames and replaced them with modern windows.
Mhm.
And I know you say color won't be an issue, but I
Mhm.
would sure get upset if my next door neighbor painted their house lilac.
Yeah.
So it's great, but I don't understand how it's going to work. And I think that's a lot of the pushback that I hear from people.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody wants Camden to keep looking like Camden looks.
Mm-hmm.
But I look at that poor guy up in Belfast with that slate roof, and they've just dragged him up one side and down the other, and he was trying to do the right thing. And I don't know how we codify doing the right thing for the town of Camden and for those homeowners. Because they want to replace some windows that are like just falling apart, we can't make them wait a year and investigate other things and keep coming back to a commission with alternatives. And I sit on one side of the fence, so I have a little different perspective, but we have to be very aware of that. And again, this gets to the how much leniency do we have, right? Because you don't want to be overly prescriptive,
Right.
but you
I
want to
mean-
have a HPO that actually says something valuable and isn't just,
Yeah. And, from the beginning, we've discussed paint color would not be part of this and windows would not be part of this. So those are the two exclusions. And when it comes to slate roof, I think that falls under the when possible materials. And I know that if that Belfast person was sitting in front of this
Poor guy.
committee, he would get a very different result. I mean, that's the reality of if these 5 people were the commission, he wouldn't be in that position with this commission.
well,
So-
we have to be careful because some of the things that are written here
Mhm.
are contradictory to what you just said,
I don't think so,
right?
but
Where it talks about using the original, the same
when
materials.
possible.
Right, right.
So if it's to extent of a
But-
financial
yeah.
burden that
On
was,
the other hand, if we waive it every single time, what's
Mhm.
the purpose of the ordinance? I'm
I-
just playing devil's
yeah,
advocate.
no, you
I'm
are
just
paying devil's
thinking
advocate
about
because it is a
Sorry.
case by case discussion. And to the point of the voters, we don't know who the voter is. So I don't think we can presume that everybody in the historic district would vote against this. I know several people who live in the historic district who are completely in favor. A couple came to one of our meetings who was absolutely in favor of it. So we don't know. And I think that's why it's important to move forward, present it to the voters and let them have their say and present them something that is workable. I don't want to be the person sitting here championing the historic preservation ordinance or pretending to have all the answers, but I do feel like that's what this committee's job is to move forward with the historic preservation ordinance. Unless we're stopped by the select board.
Can I just make 2 quick comments? So recent example, just to on your point, the last demolition delay that came to us, a neighbor came to that who had seen one house on the other side of her property demolished during their ownership, and then now the one on the other side. So they were definitely in favor, or they're definitely in favor of something that would prevent that sort of thing from happening. So I that's just one clear example. And then also to your point before about, well, if the demolition delay doesn't have any teeth, what's the point of it? Before I was on the committee, another project, the Chestnut Street project, came in front of the committee, and through the suggestion to find alternatives and salvage materials, we were able to deconstruct that project. So, and they just didn't even know that was an option. So I do think there's benefits, even if it's not something that's like mandated. If we can make suggestions, usually hopefully they're received well. And that's just one example of one that actually worked out for the best.
Yeah.
Someone comes in and they want to get rid of all the old windows, the original windows.
Mhm.
Would the board or the commission still try to talk them out of it?
Well,
National Register, if you put a nice new storm window over that,
mhm.
you're all set. The old windows can just be repaired and stuff, kept in place.
That would certainly be the conversation we'd like to have to preserve that window, but we have specifically talked about not making that part of the ordinance.
But just try to convince them of the.
We'd certainly want to have that conversation. Yeah, but ultimately it would be their decision. Well, shall we move on and see what comes of Susan's talk with Allison and yeah. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. I know like it's frustrating to have worked on something for so long and they keep falling back to really fundamental questions. But
I think it's just evidence that we haven't answered them all yet. That's all it is.
agreed. Okay, moving on. Danny, do you have anything you want to share with us about deconstruction?
Oh, I was curious what the villager
I-
or the village
I
green
shouldn't have
kiosk
included that.
update-
I'm sorry.
Oh,
I
okay,
meant-
because I thought we discussed that
Yeah, we
already.
did.
Okay. Nothing major. Yeah, still kind of pausing on the deconstruction work and trying to create a marketplace for these materials. So anyone that we have had people like I've touched base with the Historic Society in Union because that's where we're based. So they know of our existence now. I hope to be able to supply folks materials that need, work on historic buildings so they can match that. And we've had a few clients that were interested in that. So just keep helping spread the word that we exist. That'd be excellent.
And
Danny, can you tell, looking at a piece of wood, whether it's
The
hard
species.
pine, spruce, what type of spruce?
I can identify basic species, but to get to that kind of specificity is hard. And I'm trying to figure out the best way to do that as a business owner. I've reached out to other people who might be able to better do so. But if you know of anyone who has that kind of eye for things, that would be great.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's a great case study, not to revert to HBO discussion, but contributing to a life cycle of the materials in this town and deconstruction and reuse, I think is another potential benefit of a historic preservation ordinance. So plaques program, you sent us quite an email, and I did bring my plaque. So if you want to discuss
Fabulous. What plaque do you have? Which one is it?
historic landmark,
Nice.
here, you want to pass that down?
You ripped it off your wall of
I
your
ripped
house?
it. I ripped it off my tabletop.
Oh, this is a Camden Historic Landmark,
Mhm.
not a district one.
No, because I don't
Nice.
live in a district,
Right,
so
it
that's
has this thing on it,
yeah. Mhm.
right?
Was that the text you wanted to
Yeah.
eliminate?
Well, it's that picture,
Oh.
right? That three-dimensional, I think it's a boat in front of mountains, like a schooner.
I thought it was Mount Betty. Is it not Mount Betty? Is it?
I don't see you.
I don't see Mount,
Isn't that a little town?
oh, is that
Have
supposed to
I-
be Mount Batty right
That's
there?
what I thought.
That little
but
thing?
Maybe I've been
Okay.
misreading it.
Do we have time to go through this?
Absolutely.
I didn't want to make up answers myself because
Yeah.
I'm not a committee.
Let's do a time check. Anyone who needs to be elsewhere, they can be dismissed, but I'd love to just have a 15, 20-minute discussion about this.
And I can just go through the questions. I'm not going to read the email. Everybody got it, right? So the question is,
Joe may not have got it. He may not know or Andy.
I can catch
sorry.
up, please.
Okay, so there's two different plaques. One for Camden Landmark Homes. That's like an individual home that somebody has done the research on, and they've been able to prove it was built in 1850, and they can trace the deeds back. But they're not in a historic district. They're just there. And then there's one if you're in a historic district, and it's a different plaque. So what has happened is two things. We have kind of redone the plaques program. There used to be a third, and we've eliminated that. And our previous plaque manufacturer has retired. So at the same time we're redoing the plaques program, we need to look for a new manufacturer. Plus the other guy, his prices were starting to get really high. So my question is, at present, there's this plaque, and then the historic landmark plaque is bigger and more oval, like a more flattened oval. So do we want to go to one plaque size, or do we like having them be visually different? So when you walk past a house from the street, if you don't have your reading glasses, you can look and go, oh, that's a this one, or oh, that's a that one.
I think we should keep them separate. I'm going to make a snotty joke here.
Be
So
snotty.
so that if you're buying a house in a historic district, you know you're buying a house.
Even
in
if
a
your realtor doesn't tell you. But they don't all have
Your home
plaques.
is within the historic
Okay,
preservation
anecdotally,
ordinance.
I knew so little when we moved here, and I saw all these houses with plaques on them, and my husband and I were like, oh, we want a plaque too. So I just went online and I made up a plaque and ordered a plaque. So I
It looks
didn't
good.
even know, so we need to do better PR. Yeah, I want a plaque. I want a plaque. You want a plaque? I can show you where to go to buy a plaque. It can just say Susan's house, Susan and Greg's house. Okay, so you
I
like to-
personally have loved the fact that there are distinguishing features between the two plaques, and I think they both are sharp, except for, as you pointed out, that second one is very busy.
There's so many words. Okay, so we're good with 2 different plaques. And
Well,
we're good with
that's
keeping
one
the
opinion.
sizes that we have. Anybody, this is one of these things in a committee where I'm just going to keep talking, and if you don't interrupt, I'm going to assume everybody agrees with me.
There you go. Go with it, Jennifer.
Well, also it's 10 after 5.
Yeah.
So
Can I ask, sorry, can I just have one foundational question? Because reading through your email, I was wondering, in creating a plaque like this, doesn't it come from, for lack of a better word, a mold?
a mold,
can we
yes,
not
but I would
purchase that
like to
mold?
go to a manufacturer that won't need a mold so that they will be cheaper and easier and quicker to get.
What's the different process? Without a
Just-
mold, you do what?
No, they just, I don't,
They
it
wave a
happens-
magic
it happens.
wand.
You go on the internet and then it magically happens and
Ah,
shows up
I
like
see.
days later on your doorstep.
Oh, okay.
So I was involved in this program and Pat and I were, can I see that?
Yeah.
So Chris Glass originally designed this and with the rope and all of this. And I'm trying to think of the guy's name that's
Richard.
I have it.
Richard.
Right, yes.
Ramsey.
Remsen.
Yeah, Richard
Yes,
Remsen.
exactly.
So he casts things. So, and is he, we think he's retiring. I don't know. Did he say that? Or?
No, I haven't reached out to anybody because I needed these questions answered before I started reaching out,
Okay.
or I would get in this situation where I asked some poor guy a bunch of questions or gal and then
Okay.
had to come back here and then had to go back. And I was trying to have answers before I,
So anyway, he has the molds for them.
Right.
And then the variable is the C and the letters.
Mhm.
And so he switches those up and he's got those that he puts in. And it's basically a lost wax method that he uses. And
yes.
so they're very nicely done. And the material is a type of aluminum. And it comes, he sprays them, then I would do the finish painting on it.
Oh, my gosh.
That's how.
Did you do mine?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Can I sign it? Anybody have a sign on the back?
Something here. So, and the problem, and then we went and got that less expensive one that was more round, and it pretty much just has the date on
The
it,
basic one,
the basic plaque.
which we're doing away with.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I talked with the manufacturer there, and some of the detail is so fine on here, they would have trouble doing that.
Right.
And if they start doing a variable, it's going to jack the price up quite a bit. So, but I never pushed on that. I mean, it still might be something to go for in terms of, keeping a form like this, they creating, we would pay something to get the mold, the original piece made.
Yeah, I mean, there are places you can go where if we come up with a standard,
Yeah.
they won't have to make a mold. I don't know how they do it. Like the one I got for my house, it's simpler, but it's also going to be faster and
Yeah.
far more cost efficient.
And that's
Yeah.
probably worth investigating. And can they get some of the unique detail
Right. Wh-
that you want to
Right.
preserve? So one thing I wanted to just say, and Pat and I have been noticing Belfast,
Mhm.
and they have, just send those around. That's
Those
just a couple
square.
of pictures, and if you drive through Belfast, they have so many big old homes. The sign is about, I haven't measured them, but probably 16 by 12, maybe, or 14 by 9. And what's not on these is they put the occupation of the original owner, like bookmaker. or-
Oh, interesting.
and carpenter or boat builder or something, which was kind of a nice, it told a little more of the story. And so that's what, Pat wanted to be sure the committee, if you're going to really revise it, That's a larger plaque. You can see it. I mean, I was 20, 30 feet from those when I took a
Wow.
picture with my camera. Then I've cropped those down a bit.
I think those are really nice. The question I would ask is, are the homes that we're designating as historic always based on the original owner? Because a lot of the historic stories do not relate to a specific person and trade.
Yeah.
But
I don't know. I mean, these don't have the trade on them, but we were there yesterday and noticed some that showed, carpenter or boat builder. So that's just to throw it into the pile here.
do you feel we'd be getting into a schizophrenic state that we already have so many of these issued in around town that if we were to modify them in any way, we'd start to have so many different plaques circulating
Then
in town?
what do you do?
Yeah, people aren't going to replace theirs, I don't think, if they already have one.
Yeah, I
What
would-
is the cost?
It had gotten up to about $175. Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot, I think.
I mean,
And-
cost is an issue, but I'd vote, if we're voting, I'd vote for keeping the original designs and using a local provider rather than doing it online.
Okay,
That'd be my
okay,
I think I would fall in line with
Yeah.
Brian.
I agree with that too.
okay, then that's what I'll investigate. Okay, and so we're happy with keeping the original. Are we happy with the National Historic District plaque that has all these words on it?
What would you
Still make-
propose removing? Because I do think it's incredibly busy.
Um,
Just the words historic district?
I would take off I don't know how we could do it, but I would like to take off the Department of the Interior, the part at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
What does it say? National Park Service, Department of the Interior.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Although it would be nice to leave the National Register of Historic Places on there, but you could make the letters bigger and maybe it could say National District of Historic Places, like that. Do you know what I mean?
So
Mhm.
are all properties in the Camden designated historic district considered part of the National Registry of Historic Places?
Yes, they can get if you're in the historic district, you can get a plaque like this.
And so there were a
By
couple of-
definition,
Not
that's-
necessarily on the National
There are
Register.
a couple of rounds of that. So in the early, late 1990s, I guess, Chris, if you recall, they put this plaque, actually, I think it started in the 70s, but there would have been 2 or 3 emphasis to get it out there. And originally, all of the districts got letters, do you want to buy one? And then they were produced. And then probably 5 or 6 years ago, we kicked this back in gear and said, who else wants them? And we've noticed you don't have one, and would you like one? And so we went out and did a little knocking on doors and asking people. And for the most part, a lot of people who didn't have one bought one. So Pat has a record of, or maybe she
Yeah,
turned it over to
she's
you.
giving me all that stuff.
We must have produced 20 or 30 probably in the last,
Do you do enough research where a house was built in 1824, the person that built it, the actual contractor, was more important than the people that lived in it, the people that bought it, had it built for them. And then also, let's say the second owner is a much more influential person, a much big town person. Would the sign have that person's name or the original person's name or the builder's name?
yeah, that's all stuff to decide. I mean, this way, keeping this
Right.
keeps it simple in terms of all of those variables.
yeah.
Okay, so the consensus I'm hearing is that we keep 2 separate plaques. We try and keep them as much possible like they look now, and that we try and find someone local who can make them, and we're not going to be so cost conscious. I mean, unless they tell me they're $400 or something, right? Okay. And-
All in agreement with that?
Buys, the homeowner
The
buys.
homeowner
No, I
buys
said
it, which
once
is why
that Camden's-
I want to be price
uh,
sensitive a little bit.
I said
So what
it's
about the one
actually
with the whole, okay, are we in agreement? Kind of like.
We're in
you're shaking
agreement.
your nose?
meetings,
Okay. What about all the wordiness on the big one?
down seal.
I agree with you. Removing the bottom wrap is
Would help.
yeah, superfluous language.
Or maybe we can just make the letters bigger and it can be National
is.
Register of Historic Places at the bottom, if that helps a little bit.
I think that up at the top is the appropriate place
Okay,
for
so
that.
just eliminate the bottom.
Yeah, it's really cluttered
I
down there.
couldn't, you don't know how I had to like magnify it and look at a whole bunch of different ones before I could even figure out what it
Yeah,
said. right?
it's
Couldn't
not super
even-
well defined there.
Even read it. Okay.
But they're
Okay.
beautiful plaques. I mean, you walk around town and they really,
Unless you come to my house and then it's just a cheap
Uh-huh.
internet one.
yeah.
Can I sell you a plaque?
You probably can now. Now I know better, right? I can get a real one. Mine's pretty cool though, because this is Amos Allen House and you can't do that. on this- Maybe I'll have two.
There you go.
I can have two.
Decorate.
Does that satisfy everything you needed
It
to
does.
hear?
Thank you very
No?
much for
Okay,
listening
great.
and
Awesome. Thank you
help
for
with that.
doing that. I know it's not easy. And now the grand finale, Curtis Island update.
Okay, this will be short. We're working on kind of four fronts. We've got a grant in to the state that the town submitted for the light tower. And that was $250,000 that we would get from the state if we got the grant. And then the Curtis Island Lighthouse Foundation contributed the 25% match, which ends up being $84,000. And we contributed another 28,000, or it will be if we get the grant, for the engineering design plans, architectural plans that the state required in filling out this application. It was a very tedious application because it follows the standards completely. And so that's why I asked about, can you match the wood? Because some of the wood on the windows on the light towers rotted.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so, and their guideline is try to match the wood if you can. And so the state managing this $10 million that the voters voted on in 2024 for historic restoration is what we're applying for. So there's a $10 million kitty that the state has. Round one has been completed. I talked with them today, and we should know at the end of January, which I was pleasantly surprised. And that will really help us be online for doing this work this summer. So that's number one. Number two is, I'll just talk about on the island. So number two is the caretaker's house. And we'll be coming before the select board and we, the foundation, and saying, we want to donate the exterior restoration of the lightkeeper's house back to the town. We'll raise the money and we'll manage the project. And that's in discussion right now. I'm working with Jeff Nathan, who's head of Parks and Recreation, and he's working with Audra, and we're going to be bringing that forward. And I hope as soon as possible, if we can get it before the select board next.
I'm
week or
sorry,
two.
Mike, I just want to understand, the foundation wants to donate the exterior of the caretaker's house back to the town.
Yeah,
Even though the foundation will still pay for and oversee all the work.
right.
So what's the benefit to you?
The benefit to us is we're saving this building that's in very bad need of repair.
No, what's the benefit in making of donating it back to the town if you're paying for all the work and
Well, we
overseeing it
don't,
anyway?
the foundation, our role is let's raise money and try to see that all of these buildings on the island get restored
Mhm.
to what they were.
Mhm.
So the benefit to us is that they get restored in a timely way. The other hand would be, hey, the town can raise the money and do it. And our experience has been, the town has not been anxious or having the capacity to raise all the funds to restore it.
But you
Now,
would
so the
retain the
benefit-
interior of the,
And so this is just the
Cottage.
exterior. The next phase would be the interior. And I don't know where that would come from, but I'm
Oh, you
thinking-
want to donate the work. I misunderstood what you said. I got
We
it.
want to make it happen.
Yes, I understand now. I'm sorry. I thought you were actually like wanted to deed the building back
Oh, no,
or
no.
something.
So
I'm sorry.
The town owns the
The
building.
town already owns,
We're
yeah.
not interested.
Okay,
in
I'm
owning the
sorry.
building.
I misunderstood what you were saying.
Well, that's good. So that's the second. The third area is access and being able to get equipment, staging, whatever onto the island. The access is an issue. We lost both sets of stairs for the most part in the December or the January 2024 storms. One set, I call them the kayak steps, have been temporarily fixed, but they're not heavy enough to carry stuff up. So we've been working with Jeff Senders, and we have kind of a whole set of plans now that are detailed and ready to go for permitting. And what the plans say are two access points. One is the kayak steps, where the kayakers' beach is, replacing those with well-designed, safe steps with those would just be replaced basically. But they would be permanent. I mean, they would be there. The second is, I call it Dee Dee's Landing, where the caretakers used to land on a rock and then had stairs that came up the bank. It's kind of in the middle. That we've gone from, let's use all the steamboat landing floats, and that didn't fly at all. Didn't want to create too much easy access to the island because community said, let's keep it as natural as we can. So the access is, we've come up with in the middle is, instead of having a superficial set of stairs going onto the ledge and then onto a float and then out to a bunch of floats, we excavate, and this is, I think, a really unique solution. If you excavate off the big piece of ledge where the middle set of stairs were, and then just excavate into the bank a little bit and put in crushed 3-inch, I mean, these engineering drawings are calling for 3-inch, they call it blasted stone, but it's rough edged stone. Put that in, and that becomes a temporary ramp, and we use a barge to offload, get it there, and then you can get it up this ramp. So it's not high above it's not sticking up, it's dug in just a little bit to ease stuff up the bank. So, and then the great thing is when we're finished with construction, that's a temporary set of stairs. When you're finished with construction, you put some earth back on it, throw some seeds on it, do some other plantings, and then open it up 100 years from now when scaling is
Have to
not
do it
here.
again.
The town wants to do another repair job.
Nice.
So that's the plan. Now, the fourth one that I mentioned is the bell, the original fog bell. That is, we have an agreement with Deer Isle Stonington to bring that bell back. They've basically given it back to us. And that's not going to probably get onto the island. If we could do it this year, that would be great, but we'll see when that happens. But we'll probably have a project to get the bell and bring it back here, and then talk with Danny about putting it into the original kind of structure that held the bell, which is it's a heavy wooden A-frame that, if you've seen pictures of it, it's pretty incredible. And that was used for 100 years, or not 100 years, 60 or 70 years. So those are the things that are going, and our need is to get kind of agreement with the town and the select board and whatever we need to do, but we're ready to move, and we've got a critical timeline here.
Can I ask,
We want to hit this building season straight on.
Can I ask how the winter weather is affecting some of the things that were in dire repair? Have you seen further deterioration?
I asked someone to take some shots that we repaired the shingles, Steve Pixley and crew and some of Jeff Nathan's crew repaired the roof. And we had it so it's not leaking. I did see another shingle off, and I asked, I can't remember, I guess it was Charlie Conover, if he could do another surveillance video of the roof, see if it's holding. But I'll tell you that the light tower, I mean, both buildings need work done because the deterioration is speeding up, you know. And so the goal, if we get this light tower grant, that we hit the ground running, we get it out to bid as soon as possible. And the share with the town, I mean, from a foundation perspective, is the town will take that, or is taking that light tower project and running with it. You know, we've tried to create we've paid for the engineering, we've paid for everything that needs to be done, so that now we have a very explicit bid document. It's really ready to go out as soon as we hear. And then, so our picture is the town takes the lighthouse and with our support, I mean, the light tower, with our support of, I don't know, $130,000. And we take the other and we push these things like crazy this summer.
So everything's been documented.
Pardon?
Both buildings have been documented, plans, sections, everything else.
Yeah, I mean, the plans, we did the study with the town in 2024, and we have a full study there, and that's going to be the guidance for the caretaker's house. And then recently, in prepping for this application for the tower, that's where we've spent $18,000 to get additional engineering drawings and bid requirements down. And so that's really ready to go. And we're hoping, I talked to Jeremy today, we're both feeling positive that we'll get that. And if we do, we want to be hitting the ground running, and all of these other pieces, except for the bell, that can happen whenever, but getting the access there is a critical step. So,
Great. Awesome.
any questions? And Susan, the outhouse, is that waiting for us
Yeah,
someplace?
yep. He said he said he had one that another town had purchased, and he held on to it for 5 years before it was, I donated a solar outhouse to the project, but we have to get it out there.
So we're really excited. We've been raising a lot of money, and we're hopeful between now and the summer, we raise the rest needed. And there have been some nice donors. We're talking with some potential large donors now, and we just need the town's support, and anything the town can do to help move this, that's going to be great.
Thank you, Michael. As always, it's so impressive what you've done.
Lottery tickets.
Pardon?
Buy those lottery tickets.
Yeah, everyone buy a bunch of lottery tickets, donate part of it.
I did submit you for an award 2 weeks ago, so we'll see how that goes. I think that's everything, unless we have any concluding comments or things. Okay, I move to close the meeting. All right, and all in favor? Okay, so moved. Thank you, everyone.